Hey, mums and dads, welcome to another episode. Today we're chatting with the lovely Tara. She is the founder of Eureka, and you may have seen on pet shelves or on social media. They do air dried, fully nutritionally balanced raw feed. It is not kibble, just to be clear. I know there's a little bit of confusion out and about what comes in packaging, but Tara can tell us a little bit more about the distinction and about why balanced and air dried is not only extremely healthy for your pups, but also very convenient as well. Hello, and thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Sherry. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So, why don't we start off by you talking a little bit about where you've come from and how you got started in the pet industry?
Yeah, no problem. It's definitely, I don't want to say it happened by accident, but it definitely happened very organically. So I started a wild game harvesting business back in 2009, and it was focused very much on eating Australian wild game for people. And we started one of the first sort of harvest collection networks for wild deer in the Victorian High Country. And we were really lucky to work with a lot of awesome chefs and be in some very fancy restaurants, and that business still goes on today. But about a year into it, we just kept getting so many inquiries from either individual raw feeding parents or from pet shops wanting to buy wild protein from us. And our mission has always been to harvest as much wild game as possible because, I don't know how much your audience may or may not know about it, but invasive species in Australia is a huge issue. There's over 1 million deer in Victoria alone that are drinking, a couple million litres of water a day, eating native habitat, out competing native species for ecosystem. So we always wanted to just increase our harvesting, and we thought, wow, there's definitely some demand here for dogs. And I was obviously feeding it to my own dog, who's a Queensland healer. He's definitely got a bit of something other than Queensland healer in him, but let's just call him a healer. But I was giving him bones, trim, organs from that business, and obviously saw how well he did on it. So we thought there's definitely something here. And there was nothing kind of on the shelves we saw that was Australian wild game focused, and that just felt like a massive missed opportunity, given how unique Australia is and how much abundant wild protein we have. So that was kind of the first thought bubble. And then around a similar time, I had the privilege to become a mum to a human, not just my dog. And suddenly, a lot of free time went out the window. And I was used to prepping raw and lightly cooked meals for my dog Ro, which was kind of just part of my routine. It was part of my shop. It was part of filling my fridge. And, it's like part of me is guilty to admit, but like that kind of slipped down the list of priorities. I started looking for just stuff I could buy off the shelf, and I found air dried, specifically like Ziwi Peak and, a brand everyone knows quite well, I'm sure. And I just thought it was crazy that there wasn't an Aussie made version. Like why all of the air dried seemed to come from New Zealand and we couldn't just combine wild protein and air dried as a concept. That was really where the idea came from. We started off we'd never obviously made the product. I don't come from a background in pet food, but we just started product development and experimenting, and we launched with like a private group of about 150 dogs in early 2022 because we wanted to make sure that, it was palatable, it would work, that it wouldn't just be something dogs like for a week, but can stay on for 3 months with really healthy outcomes. And that was a raring success. And, proud to say some of that group are still like our customers and subscribers today. But yeah, that led to us launching late 2022. I think it was August or September. And it was fun. Like it was a big learning curve. Our website was terrible. We had a lot of sort of teething issues, learning how to do that well and make it easy for people. But sort of fast forward a couple years and we couldn't be more stoked with how it's going. You know, we've onboarded over 15,000 dogs onto the food. We're serving a couple 100,000 meals a month. And, you know, overall, we get really amazing feedback. And some of the stories that we hear about, you know, cracking a fussy eater, you know, helping a dog balance their weight, or helping with like skin irritation and nail issues, to just helping people who are short on time, but like want to do something better than just buying the same kibble every single time. Like, that's really motivating. And it's been a really, really fun ride.
Excellent. So, talk to us a little bit more about why you decided to go for an air dried product, and for our listeners who maybe aren't clear on the differences, why that is different and healthier from a baked kibble product.
Yeah, so I think like it's important to just disclaimer at the front, like I don't want to demonize kibble. Like I think that there is a role for it to play in some dog parents' lives. I've said it before, lots of people
We all
mix
have.
lots of people mix either raw or air dried or freeze dried with kibble as a base. Um, the most important thing is that you're just giving the dog the best you are able to within your own means.
Of course.
That's kind of where I was in my feeding journey also. And the benefits of air dried and why we went with it as a format. Firstly, the formulation itself. So we are 90% real meat, bones, and organs, not like, you know, the leftover bits from an abattoir, but like we pay professional hunters to get whole animals, wild deer, kangaroo, goat, etc. And that is what forms the bulk of our food. You know, the same food that goes into the human system goes into our food. 90% meat, organs, and bone is always the core. The other 10% is just fruits, vegetables, and a limited amount of more like holistic ancient grains. So not like soy, like chia seed, flaxseed, things like that. So when you contrast that with kibble, kibble will often say that it is a kangaroo kibble or it is a turkey kibble. And legally in Australia, you only have to have a very, very low meat percentage to make that claim. Like you could be 25% meat, and that meat could all be reformulated byproduct that's been twice processed, etc., for you to say that a kibble is a meat kibble. And the rest of it will be a long laundry list of fillers. So that's not to say there aren't better kibbles out there. There are some that are higher meat. There are some that have more transparent ingredients. But when you speak to the sort of the biggest brands in kibble, that's a very standard practice. Low quality meat byproduct at a low percentage of the formulation as the anchor, supported by fillers and grains and preservatives. And a lot of them are also not made in Australia. So air dried, by contrast, there's the formulation. The next part is the temperature. So we cure food in air dried. It's very similar to a jerky, right? Like you're almost comparing jerky to meatloaf. Like meatloaf might be baked at 180, 200 degrees in an oven. A jerky is slow cured. And when you cure something, you retain a lot more of the nutritional profile. So not only is it a better recipe to start, but you're not just blasting so much heat that you break down all the nutrients. And because kibble is fast processed, extruded at such a high temperature, that's also something that can happen. So you're generally starting with a kibble with lower quality ingredients, higher temperature cooking. We're starting with higher quality ingredients and lower temperature cooking. But as for the reason we chose it, it wasn't just the nutritional benefits. I just wanted something that you could literally scoop and serve. Like, because that's what everyone loves about kibble, right? It's a bag that you put wherever is convenient for you. It doesn't have to be in a special box or in a fridge or defrosted or staged. There isn't like endless individual packaging. You just have a bag and you scoop and serve. And the nutritional density also made it really convenient. So like, as you know, a kilo bag of our food probably has the same amount of calories as a 2 kilo bag of kibble because it's more dense per gram. That means less storage space, less packaging consumption. So it just seemed like the perfect kind of, meeting point for us of great nutrition, super convenient.
Absolutely. And the other thing to note as well for people who aren't aware, who aren't feeding this way currently, because of the density of nutrients in there, as you said, you've not only got a higher concentration of nutrients in a smaller bag potentially. I found years ago when I first started transitioning my dogs to raw, the amount of food that they need to feel full every day has actually reduced significantly as well, which was really interesting to me. I struggled with that for a little while. No, that can't possibly be enough. Oh my God, I'm underfeeding them. But no, they were maintaining their weight with
Yeah.
much more ease. They were feeling full and satisfied. Being retrievers, they love their food, but these guys, you have never seen them more excited when the bowl hits the floor. They're practically licking the
Yeah.
metal off the bowl, just going crazy for it. And the other thing I found too, besides the obvious benefits, healthier guts, healthier skin and immunity, all of those things, I found behaviourally as well, they were just a little bit calmer and a little bit more attentive. Communicating with them actually became easier. Again, this is something retriever mums and dads will be familiar with. They're a little bit nutty and they don't grow up at 2. They grow up at 3 to 4, and that's if you're lucky. I've got a 5-year-old who I'm still having issues with, not because she's stupid by any means, but because she's just playful and lively and not today, Grandma.
Yeah.
But I found even just the change in diet made a huge difference there. There are just so many additional benefits that I hadn't thought of and that I think a lot of people
Yeah.
out there potentially don't realise if they haven't
For
tried it.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not an immediate thought. Like, we think of our dogs in a certain way so often, but we actually have so much in common with them when it comes to nutrition and digestion. I'm not saying absolutely everything is the same, but that
Very
broad
similar.
principle that a lot of people experience, which is protein is higher satiety, like fat is better at balancing your energy versus being on a super high carb diet. Like, if we all just ate donuts and, toast and chips all day,
Which you would never
you'd have
do.
massive, exactly, but you'd have those glucose spikes that make a person super moody, that make a human gut quite inflamed and irritated. So to feed your dog high protein, high fat, low carb, it makes sense that it would balance their energy, their weight, and their mood.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point that you raise, using the comparison of sweet treats and junk food. I mean, that's one of the first things that I mention to people who come to me with their dog's skin issues. It's what are you feeding? And they tell me. And, if they're feeding a high processed diet, I will say to them, do you have children? Usually, yes. Would you feed your child KFC or McDonald's 7 days a week? God, no.
Yeah,
Well, you're kind of doing that with your dog. You might want to rethink things a
100%.
little bit. Yeah, just putting it
Yeah,
in terms like
100%.
that are so easy to understand, I think really helps.
Yeah, and it's not, it's really, I think it's really important to kind of like wrap your arms around like all pet parents,
Of course.
because, there's not necessarily like a great deal of education on how to feed your dog best. We all kind of just follow some very loose parameters. Like, there's not a huge amount of guidance and support from vets, to be honest. And I think a lot of vets will admit that a lot of their training is more around, like, same as the human, medical system, is
And they
more
don't
around
receive a lot of it.
responding.
It's one
Exactly.
semester.
They don't get preventative or nutritional training as a focus of their
Not really.
degree, and that's not their fault. They're more focused on how do we deal with severe outcomes and health disasters. So I think there's not enough guidance out there, and it's great, like the focus of this podcast obviously is to share more of that information, but I didn't know any of this stuff until I was kind of forced into an awkward
Yeah.
place, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I remember back in the day, I'm dating myself now, going back, probably 25 years or so. The thing that you did was you fed a base of kibble, and back then it was Bonnie, and I shudder to think of that ingredients list today. And you would cook up a stew once a week, very heavy on rice or pasta, with some mince and maybe
Wow.
just some frozen peas and carrots, and you dump that on top. And that was considered, the thing at the time.
Mm.
I shudder when I think about that now, but you do the best you can at the time with the information, that you
Yeah.
have. But by the same token, I don't want people out there to think that raw is the be all and end all and you have to go all
Yeah.
the way in, you have to do it 100%. I mean, that doesn't suit everybody's budget or lifestyle. That also doesn't suit every dog. A lot of them just can't digest it. So,
100%.
it's finding what works for that individual household and for that individual dog. And for some people, that might be a hybrid approach. It might be a base
Yeah.
with a little bit of kibble, maybe some air dried, whatever works for
Yeah.
that dog, and maybe you're topping that with
Yeah.
something fresh, and that's great.
Yeah.
And look, they're going to be still going to be a lot healthier for it.
Yeah. Like I personally actually felt like support hybrid feeding probably more than anything else. Like even as a co-founder and owner of Eureka, I don't feed my dog 100% Eureka. And the reason for that is I just think of my own preferences. And if someone was to put the same meal in front of me every day of my entire life, even if it was a
Oh,
high quality meal, I'd be bored. And so I like to mix up what my dog eats from like an enjoyment, a variety perspective, keep their palate diverse. It's more fun for them. It's fun for you as an owner to treat them.
exactly. You get to try different products and experiment. I mean, I
Mm.
have a base that fits in with my routine really well, but every couple of weeks I'll go out and I'll buy some different strips or some mince. I'll buy, different bones. I'll do a different topper. It might be, this flavour of Ziwi Peak this time, or it might be this flavour of something else this time. It's more fun to mix and match because they do get bored like we do. And I get called an obsessed dog mum a lot of the time because, yes, I spend more money and put more care into their food than I do mine. But I enjoy it and I like seeing how much they enjoy it. And they could not be healthier or
Look,
happier.
food is a love language, right? And like we express that so much in our lives, and our dogs are part of our lives. So it's really just an extension of that. And I think it's one of the biggest myths or confusion points that we feel we have to debunk and are still, I guess, grappling with, like as a new company, is explaining to people like, one, this isn't kibble. It is shelf stable and it is in a bag. Two, it's not all or nothing. You obviously see that our product's really expensive per kilo, but it's hard for people to understand it's expensive per kilo because it's so nutrient dense. All the
Exactly.
moisture's been taken out. And it's expensive per kilo because it's such high meat. So what you're getting is really, really high quality. But then the third part is that it's not all or nothing. Like, please go ahead and mix our product with whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a full feed. It can be a treat. It's amazing as a training treat. And we have a lot of dog trainers who use us pretty exclusively. But I think people kind of meet our brand and see some of the ads and think, wow, that's really expensive and I can't go all in. But the reality is, like, most people don't go all in, and that's still a huge benefit to your dog's
I
nutrition.
mean, you don't have to. I mean, look, I've got three retrievers. That would cost me an arm and a leg to feed something like that for every meal. But you
Yeah.
don't need to do that. For treats, absolutely amazing. I keep a packet in the car if I need to bribe them into doing something, or I just want to reward them for being good while we're traveling. I use it as toppers. There's so many different ways that you can use it, and they love it. They think it's Christmas, and you're getting all
Mm,
of these extra nutrients into their little bodies.
100%. Yeah, we have there's a trainer that I take my dog to up here because he's adorable, but he's, like you said about your girls still being puppies at age 5.
Nothing.
He's about to turn 5 and he still has puppy tendencies.
He should meet my
But
Hattie.
dog trainer, his philosophy has always been you should use the incentive in a training session. The incentive you use in a training session should be your dog's food, not a treat because they're going to be more motivated towards food than anything. And if you're a raw feeder, like, how are you going to do that in practice? Like, it's not that you should stop feeding your dog raw, but like, it's very difficult to like carry around a pouch of wet, complete and balanced food at the beach and just kind of be like rubbing that through your hands all the time.
No, air dryer's
And so
perfect for that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's convenient. It doesn't make a huge mess. I live by it, and especially if I'm raising puppies, which I have done in the past, it's just so perfect to be able to keep in your back pocket when they're being puppies and they're driving you nuts. Bribery
Yeah.
works, and it might as well be healthy.
I mean, you could say the same thing for human children also.
But I don't think they would eat
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
or it might
What's
be
your
bad
take
fun.
on air dried food like ours for puppies? Like, do you think that it's just a treat training incentive, or do you think that you would
No,
use it as a full feed?
I use it for more than that. I don't use it as a full feed because I guess my thinking is the family that ends up with this baby is not necessarily going to feed the way that I feed. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. So I like to get them used to different tastes and different textures as much as I can, while, of course, keeping it as healthy as I can, because the research is showing that even puppies, while they're little, if they're raised on balanced raw or balanced fresh food, whether it's air dried or what have you, there's a huge, huge reduction in the occurrence of allergies throughout the rest of their adult life. And of course, I want my grandbabies to grow up big and strong. So it's part of their diet, but it's not their whole diet. I'm still feeding different forms of fresh. I'm still feeding chicken necks and wings and getting them used to bones. I'm giving bone broth. I'm doing a combination of things.
Yeah. And that's what hybrid feeding is going to be throughout the rest of their lives also.
Well, that's right. I mean, chances are at some point they're going to come across kibble. I try to avoid giving my babies kibble just because I want to send them off with their little guts and their immune systems as strong as possible. But you also want to get them used to that texture. I just happen to do it with something that's air dried so they get used to the crunch. So when they go home with their new mums and dads, they may be given kibble. It's not foreign to them, but at least I feel I'm giving them the strongest start that I can.
Yeah. Amazing.
Is there anything else that you have coming up that you want to tell people about?
Do we have so much coming up. I'm trying to think of
Really?
what I
Can
can
you
say that
say or
won't get
not
me
yet?
in trouble. So a few things that we can definitely say is in the next few months we're going to have a couple new recipes in our functional treat range. So our
Nice.
functional treat range is really like an Australian first. We wanted to provide the highest level possible of like real impactful functional natural ingredients, whether it's like our calming one's been hugely popular for anxious
Beautiful.
dogs. So we're going to bring out a couple new variants of that, like one for more skin, coat and nails, and one more for joints and mobility. So really excited to see those come out.
Yeah.
We're going to bring out some supersized value packs of our favorite best-selling treats. So there's a
Wicked.
couple recipes that have been super popular and have been requested a lot by our customers. So happy to get those going. I can't say too much, but we will have some new recipes in the next 6 months. There's been
Lovely.
lots of requests from customers for more wild proteins. And so we've been working hard on those. And I guess the only other thing I'll say is we continue to do a lot of work in the background for our customers who also either don't have a dog and have a cat or have a dog and have a cat. So cat people, we still hear you and we're
That's a
working
big
on that in the
one.
background.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
that's that's a
overall,
tough that's a tough one, especially on the palatability side of things.
yes.
Yeah, cats are a tough nut to crack.
Yes. So that's why it's been a slow burn, I suppose. We are also like dog people first, I suppose.
Same.
But yeah, this summary is there's a lot more to come from Eureka. We're still a really young company. I think a lot of people might not realize how small we are as a team. Like it really did start sort of out of the backyard of our farm in
Yeah.
Eureka, and
Well,
it's
that's
been
where I'm still
amazing.
running mine on my 5 acres in Country Vic. Everything
Yeah, it's
happens
been
here.
It's been an amazing ride, and there's so much more we want to do to help more dogs and their owners just realize that feeding high quality doesn't have to be inconvenient or expensive. You can adapt it to meet your lifestyle and your budget with hybrid feeding and, options like air dried. Yeah, also just encouraging people to do more research, I suppose. Like one question we get a lot is around pancreatitis and sort of low fat diets. There's especially dogs who have been fed really starchy, high carb diets can often end up really overweight, have pancreatitis. The vet will then say, you need to be on this like medical grade kibble, which is a low
Yes, they
fat
do.
diet. And that actually can lead to even more downstream effects. So for anyone who's had that advice and thinks that our food might not suit them, we did a really great paper with Dr. Mark Roberts, who's a PhD canine nutritionist who's based in Canada. And he has done heaps of research on feeding exclusively fat diets to working dogs. He basically proved that, taking a group of sled dogs and feeding
Yeah,
them
yeah,
like high carb kibble versus feeding them like a high fat diet, that the high fat diet sample group
yeah.
had more consistent energy,
High
better body
protein, high fat
condition.
every time, I would argue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, like I said, I just think we're happy to do way more to meet customers where they're at. And we hope that, dog owners in return can spend a bit more time finding out what good food really is.
yeah, yeah. And that's the whole reason I'm doing this. And the other thing that I love about Eureka as well is that you're exclusively using wild proteins, and you're not supporting factory farming, which is really important
Yeah,
if you're a
100%.
lover of the planet, which I am. We're a zero plastic brand. We won't use palm oil or anything that has negative implications on the environment. And factory farming is a huge problem. So that's another really important
100%.
bit.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. We're going to have to get you back again because there's so much more we could talk about. So, just quickly, we will put all of your links in the doobly doo below the episode. But for
Yep.
anyone who wants to go and get some functional treats or get some venison or some roux, what have you, or even has questions, where do they go? What's the best place to find you?
So, best place to go is just the website, eurekapet.co. I will be bold enough to put my own email here. If you have questions or you listen to this or it touched you, you can email me. It's Tara, Tara, at eurekapet.co.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Absolute pleasure.